that was clearly a mistake. Well, we are finally live, and today was not an easy day. Well, today, as you guys know, this is a podcast a little different from what we usually have. We have started Evan Studios developer interview podcast. We started late in December with Advent from Fleeting Hearts. Today, I have the pleasure to have as my guests Candiru and Loryana from Cursed Atelier. They have created games or are creating games such as Voidbound. Obviously, most of you know about the game. And today, I will have the pleasure to be interviewing them. If you guys have any questions for them, as usual, I appreciate you guys leave them on the chat. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. How are you guys doing?
Good. How about you?
A little tired, but yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for making time to for this interview. I know it's not easy with the developer schedules, especially this early in the year. There's a lot of in these transition times. Usually, people have a lot of work to do and have a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So I really appreciate you guys for being able to set a schedule for this interview today.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Pleasure
Thank
to
you
be
for having
here.
us.
Well, we are going to be here for a while. I'm going to try and start with the questions, so you guys can start getting in the mood for the interview, and then we can go from there as you guys feel a little bit more confident about the getting when you're getting to the balance of answering the questions and whatnot. We can get a little bit more acquainted and whatnot. We are going to start with questions that I usually make, because essentially what led me to create this podcast were questions that almost everyone had about the process of creating games. So I feel like most of them are usually valid for almost every single developer. So we're going to try and get as many of them in the amount of time you're willing to share with us. And the first one, I don't know how you guys want to answer, but I'm sure you guys will find a way to answer them. The first one is, can you walk us through the moment you were first introduced to the world of adult games or visual novels, and what specifically about that experience drew you in? And you can answer in order, one then the other. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start with that. For me, if I have to think back, it was definitely towards the later times of being a teenager. And I remember I was just Googling around for references because I was trying to learn to draw. And I came across a character design that I really liked. And after Googling, kind of like that slippery slope, I figured out where it was from. And after starting to play, there was a game called Lightning Warrior Rady. I'm not sure if anyone knows that one. But basically, I started playing that, and it was something new that I have not experienced, so it drew me in quite well. And then a bit later, you come across websites like ULMF and Hongfire. I think Hongfire is not a thing anymore, but
That's I sorry I left it. My process was similar, and the websites were about the same.
yeah, so I stumbled across those, and then as time goes on, I found a thing where people were fan translating games. And that really piqued my interest and started to where I got really invested into the whole thing and also try my hand a little bit at it myself later on.
It's crazy how similar that story is to mine. I did exactly the same thing. I personally don't know Lightning Warrior Rady. It's the first time I'm hearing about the game, but my process was similar. It was about 14, 15 years ago, and it was the same thing. A friend of mine asked me for help to do a little scripting for his game. It was releasing his game in ULMF. Then I also met On Fire. Then I also started doing fan translations and decided, well, maybe I should start making my own game. It's incredible how similar the story is.
Yep. And funnily, I also found your website at one point.
The old one that we cleared.
Yes.
Actually, they cleared for us because apparently the host that we used wasn't it wasn't too much into adult stuff. There was a huge prosecution back at the days. even not Patreon, even PayPal was super against it at the time.
But yeah, I remember also seeing your website where you hosted some fan translations that were not available on UMF back then.
Yeah, because there was a huge attack. I'm sorry to go on this tandem, but there was a huge attack on actually fan translations back in the day. Some devs were actively against them, especially since we were translating mostly games out of the L side, Japanese games, and culturally they were very against the translations. Even though we were releasing them oftentimes without the games, we were just releasing the fan translation. And it's funny how groups like Kagura Games and other translator groups, big translator groups, are so accepted nowadays, but at the time they weren't. So we had to find kind of like our hidden heaven to be able to release those translations. And at the time, there were two ways to get into the website, which either you will have to get just about anyone from the website to refer you. So if anyone wants to give you a key, you will get in, period. And the other one was, at the time, you would have to pay a one-time fee or 50 euros, because that was just, no one is going to pay 50 euros just to come here and try to destroy the community. Or at least we used to think at the time. And you know, we never had problems until eventually we were shut down because adult stuff apparently wasn't available in that form, and that's when we moved to Discord and whatnot. What about you, Loryana? What was your process getting into the or even better, how did you find out about Cursed Atelier?
Okay, that's a good question. So, by the way, I'm Lori, and I'm the PR manager for Cursed Atelier. The guy who was talking was the CEO of Cursed Atelier.
I'm really sorry for not doing a proper introduction.
No problem, no problem. I mean, like, you guys want to get right into it, that's okay too. So I would say I have experience of playing some adult games, but I was not in any capacity in the world of developing or any of the behind the scenes of adult games. I was just a simple player, I would say. Like, I played maybe a couple raunchy yaoi games in my teens, played some visual novels, some hentai, some not. But it was a very casual interaction with the adult games. And I wasn't involved in the project since the inception, but when Candiru disclosed that he's developing an H game, I took interest in it. I also even secretly backed him for about 2 months on Patreon, and which he didn't know, and it was just like a kind of a, supporting a friend type of thing at the time. And then when we got into a relationship, he kind of introduced me to the game formally, and I kind of started helping him out with the social media and the communications aspect of it. So I handle those for Cursed Atelier right now.
That's really awesome, and I didn't know that I wasn't talking to the ad dev for a while until you told me that you were the social media manager. Since I've been doing our own social media management for 15 years, but yeah.
Oh, he was very happy to pawn that off to me because he's not. He's like, I'm a developer.
I'm not good at it.
Yeah, especially like Candiru mentioned, you've been through the hellfire of ULMF. A lot of devs that have been there for that period of time and saw kind of like the scrutiny, and it's still not a great place to be, but people are very particular and people are very intense about their anti. So devs in general have a really hard time trying to communicate with open communities like ULMF and F95, where just about anyone can make an account and start laying out on you for no reason, and there's very poor moderation. So yeah, I'm sure you was more than happy to give the social media aspect out to you.
I can say I am shielding her from ULMF and F95. That is still stuff I do. Because those people can be really mean. But
yes.
In the end, I do think even in mean feedback or whatever, you can always take out something valuable.
I'll say 90% of the times that's true, yeah. But again, it's places where, you know, there's something that between anonymity and human beings that just brings out the worst in people. And you know, a lot of people, when they can make multiple accounts in a website, they just feel free to just lay it out the most unfair, unjust attacks. And knowing what was ULMF, I understood right away that F95 was just going to be ULMF Phase 2, and I just steered away from it.
I only used it for marketing purposes. I figured, let's say I have my game on Steam, it will end up there at any point anyway. There is no preventing it. So I figured I'll just make my own forum post there. At least that way I can have some control over it. But I do agree that because people can be anonymous on there, some of the comments you do have to scratch your head.
Yeah, I've been through this a million times. People will definitely hit you for, you know, damn if you do, damn if you don't. If people will accuse you of your game for being a slow burn, the same day that someone is telling you that your game moves forward way too fast. So it definitely, like, you need to take everything with a grain of salt. But you did mention that you were seeing the fan translations, you were pretty much consuming with Lightning Warrior ready, and, you know, obviously, was there a particular game or moment that caused the trigger that made you decide to stop consuming adult games and start dedicating your time to creating your own?
So for me, I don't think I've ever stopped consuming them. I am not consuming them the same way as I did before, you know, as a fan. I see them now more as to see how do other developers, as time goes on, how do they evolve the gameplay? How do they evolve, how they integrate the aero aspect into the gameplay? So I do try to always look around what is new, what is currently a little bit trending, why does it work? And also still keep looking around what other developers, let's say from the Western, like also your game, I have played through it multiple times, just to see how did you approach things? Is there something I can learn from it as well?
What about you, Loryana?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize because it took like a stop. You know, regarding my game, I've been developing it for so much time. I actually had a question for you later down the road, but it's kind of like, how do you adapt to the times? Because you started developing your game quite a while ago. You keep trying to make new stuff, making stuff fresh and whatnot. And the same thing happened to me. Like when I started Fleeting Iris, I just had ideas that I wish other games had this. That's kind of like that was kind of the reason why I started making my own game. But as I was moving forward, I started having like just general ideas from my game. I was playing my game, and I was like, oh, I wish the game had this, or I wish the game had that. And that was, you know, and applying that to the limitations of RPG Maker was actually what made it interesting. But yeah, I've been developing for so long that I guess that question will have like a million different answers depending in which year you asked me.
What I can say about what you just said about when you play your own game and you realize, wouldn't it be cool to have that feature as well? So Voidbound is now in public development. It was a little bit more hidden first because we wanted to have first a good foundation before we even go public. I would say it's in active development for 6-7 years, give or take. The thing about it that is always feature creep. You think, hey, this could be a cool thing. Hey, if I would add this, it makes it better. That is something I do have to say I ran into, and I had to now stop because at one point you have to say, okay, the vision that you have is good. Just stick with it. You can always add stuff when you're finished with the product.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that. I'm the worst at that. I'm the worst at like looking at something and being like, oh no, I need to add it now because I will never get back to it and I will never add it. And especially for Fleeting Iris, the worst thing that can happen to you as a dev is you playing through a part of your game and being like, oh my god, I'm not having fun. There's something here that is making the game be like it's becoming a chore. I don't want to do this part of the game, and if I feel that as a dev, people as players will definitely feel that.
Absolutely. I had that multiple times as well.
Yes,
if people have played a a little while ago, the demo of Voidbound that we have on Steam, you will notice that the first dungeon is completely different than to what it is now in the full build. Because we realized very long ago when RPG Maker games came around, it was the classic, hey, a dungeon needs to be somewhat a labyrinth, because you want to have players spend time in there. I learned the hard way that that is the wrong philosophy for dungeons, in my opinion. Dungeons should be rewarding exploration without the main path being a labyrinth. Adding extra pathways is just a way to pad the game for extra runtime, and it is not the right approach.
Yeah, because a few players are going to appreciate the options, but the vast majority will probably feel like you're not respecting their time and you're just trying to artificially inflate the game. Like, oh, he already has the assets, he just put extra pads together to make the game longer, which people don't understand oftentimes how hard it is to create more maps and balance more maps. Even when you already have the assets, it's still a lot of work that goes in there, especially if you want to make something that feels immersive and that it feels unique.
And also for us, the way we design at least the maps, they are all hand-drawn. We're not using the classic RPG Maker tile sets. So each map takes longer to develop because we have to draw it from the scratch, basically. So when you then suddenly get, let's say, if we go back to F95, you get a review. This game is hand-holding too much. This game is not hand-holding too much. The quest is go here, go there, go here, then back here, and go here. It's like, that is sometimes the extent of the gameplay you can actually implement in RPG Maker. It doesn't give you that much options, like, say, like in Unreal or Unity.
Well, actually, like some people are surprised that the game is RPG Maker because of all the tile sets. Like we hand draw them and everything. So people are like, "Wow, you were able to pull this off from the RPG Maker. Like that's very impressive."
I feel that I definitely had, what the thing that I had the most was actually finding tile sets that we created in other games. That happened to us dozens and dozens of times. And especially
for me, that's sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What you just described with finding tile sets that fit what you want to create is exactly the reason why I said I am not using tile sets anymore. I'm only going to draw the maps and then use region blocks as your, this is where you can walk, this is not where you can walk.
Yeah, well, I create a lot, if not most of our tile sets from in Photoshop. I started again. It always goes through this. I started doing small edits. I already had some experience in Photoshop, and what started as small edits turned on to full blown parallax mapping and whatnot at some point. And then obviously there's a lot of things that we did in our game that even in the RPG Maker forums we asked if it was possible, and people told us multiple times that it was not possible in any way, shape, or form. And there's a few things in our game that people still ask us to this day how it's done, and we're like, just look at the source code. The game is not encrypted anymore.
I don't believe in stuff that it's not possible. I feel like if you put your mind to it, it is possible in some shape or form. Maybe not the way it is originally envisioned.
It's just that some engines are a little bit more limiting than others, especially in RPG Maker VX6. You were unable to do a lot of changes because you had to edit the DLL, and editing the DLL is illegal.
Yep, it is. I ran into that issue in MV as well.
Yeah, that is a problem. That is a big problem, especially on the developing side, the way the windows work and whatnot. But that's probably a conversation that is a little too boring for the people listening to us at home.
But to finish the question real quick, because it's also, when did you start dedicating your time to create your own? That was basically during my time at Kagura Games. I worked there as a translator first.
Oh, so you worked for Rakshan?
My way up to technical lead. Yes, I did. He basically approached me when I did a fan translation of Seed of Evil.
Mm-hmm. I know the game.
And then he basically asked me if he can hire me, and I said yeah, and then we started working together. But during those moments, he asked me at one point, is it possible to make a PG version of a game? And that is basically how I started to really learn how RPG Maker VXAs works, and how I went on and also into MV. But during my time there, I saw so many games that had really great art, but they were a little bit lacking in gameplay and story. That is basically the main motivation behind Voidbound. I wanted to see how far can I push all of it in making a game that has good gameplay and also has good arrow to it.
That is really interesting. That kind of led to my last question, which will be like more in a technical way. Like before diving into adult game development, like what kind of work or creative background did you have? Like in art, programming, writing, modding. So you're saying that you already were translating. So the question is, how were you doing the translations? And then you can answer the rest of the question if you may.
So originally, I learned to be a carpenter, and not even anything art or game coding related. I was just working construction, and I started translating as a hobby. I'm not sure if you know that, but the tool was a thing called Translation Aggregator.
I'm familiar. Yes.
To hook up with games, to learn Japanese that way.
So at the time was machine assisted.
Exactly.
It started as machine
assisted.
assisted.
Was not machine. I was playing the Japanese games with that.
Okay.
Later on, I went into school to learn Japanese.
Nice.
And then I went into the translation as a hobby. As I noticed that I have more of a knack for the technical aspect of that rather than the translation, I stopped with the school and basically self-taught myself program.
Nice. That's
so
really
that
nice.
I can create Voidbound.
That's a really cool process to get into creating games. It really shows people that you can start from something. Sometimes I envy people that have jobs such as like carpentry and whatnot, that where you work with your hands, you learn a profession, and it's just your day is just you and your profession, and when you go there, and when you leave the work there. But there's something amazing about creating in being creative in games, and there's something even more amazing about actually physically creating something. So that's really cool, but there's a lot of people that have those jobs that probably think that they don't have the time or they don't have the capacity to do things. And sometimes the transition is you play games, then you edit games, and then you make translations, and then before you know it, you're learning how to program in a website, and boom, you're a game dev.
Exactly. For me, it basically started in Kagura games. Hey, can you modify this game? And I said, I don't know if I can. Let me try. And it was easier than anticipated. I guess something in my mind is, or rather, I have a good talent of reverse engineering. So I was able to figure out how does everything work together.
Funny, because for us, Kagura Games was like, can we do a PG version of this game? And they're like, yeah, we just need to like cut 95% of the game, because there's no freaking way we're going to do a PG version of that game.
For me, one of my biggest achievements is I managed to PG-13 111 game.
Oh.
And the game was still 10 hours long. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Fleeting Hours was
and they have everything so hard coded that it's basically, if you remove something, everything crashes.
Oh, I know. I'm fully aware. I did many edits on 111 games.
And it was the game was called Ideology and Friction.
I know which one it is. I actually know most of their games, even the early game ones, where their fetishes that people consider brutal nowadays were far more brutal.
Time changes people.
Well, the community does too. There's a lot of things that you enjoy that you end up toning down or toning up, depending on all your community. For instance, I never imagined myself doing a Shota or a bestiality patch for Fleeting Hours, and 12 years later. Gotta give the people what they want. What about you, Loryana? Did you have anything to do with sort of like social media management, or did you have contact with the public, or was this the first job where you had to do something of that kind?
It is actually the first time before. Like I have a full-time office job currently, and I was not in any of like the social media or like marketing like that kind of area.
Mm.
Um, but then I took it up, and it was actually quite fun. So like I still continue doing it. I think I've been at it for about 2 years now. So, and not just that, I do have like kind of like I do pitch in my own ideas as well. So we have a dedicated writer and artists, but if I have an idea, I can pitch it in during like the creation of a new character or scenes. Candiru like often asks me like for my feedback as well, like what do you think about the scene, or what do you think about this character? What color scheme should we go with? Which direction should we take them in? Of course, he has like the overarching story and like the direction he wants to go, but those like little minor things that kind of make like bring out the detail in the game. Like I do have some input in that as well, and the magic of it is like to see it realized in the game. So it's like quite a fun process because you basically can create something out of nothing, right? So, and that requires a lot of effort from, of course, the developers, coders, and the writers and artists. And yeah, I quite enjoy the creative process of this, even if I have not had experience with it before.
Yeah, you were basically thrown into the fire, so to speak. But I guess that being in social media instead of actually being like straight away directly into the forums and whatnot, like Candiru said, is it tries to shield you from the hardest places. But it is an interesting place to work on. I definitely feel like this was what I was thinking, because the way you expressed it, I was actually thinking that, especially early on, I guess that my real life friends were some of the hardest but the best critics that I have, because I used to show them. I used to be like super proud of anything I did. I will do like a lamp pole and be like, "Oh my god, look, this is awesome," and they will look at it and they will offer me, especially on the early maps, they will offer me so much criticism, and I will send them the game and they will try it and send me criticism back. And that's probably one of the ways where my game evolved the most, was getting my friends directly involved and criticizing my game and seeing me create it and seeing how many hours I was putting into it. So they were not just judging the stuff that I was doing, but by seeing the process, they were able to see it from a different perspective and appreciate the effort I put into a game in a different manner. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, it's kind of creating like something from nothing, right? So it's like this creative process is kind of not something everyone has the chance to do in their lifetime, right?
Right.
So it's like have a project to your name, like that is something very special.
It is. You're basically leaving a legacy, regardless of what it is. But you particularly, you probably are able to see the effort of Candiru on a light that is different from anyone else, because you actually see the process and you see how much effort it took to create some of the things, so you're able to appreciate it on a different manner.
Absolutely, yes. I think like what he's achieved so far is amazing. Sometimes he goes and has doubts about his work, and I was like, well, not everyone can pull this off, and you're so far into development, and like we're like very close to the finish line, and really that's like not a feat that not a lot of people can do, right? So like some people are too intimidated to even start their projects. Some people start it but like finish midway, like stop midway. But like we're working really hard to get it like kind of past the finish point, and like and then we take it from there, right? Like we'll continue updating the game. We may start on new projects, and all of that is very inspiring to me.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. I mean, there's a million reasons why people stop developing games where they start, but people don't understand how much pressure it is to be on creative work sometimes, or creating self-implied deadlines, feeling that you're a fraud, just the general burnout that people actually have, because people don't respect mental work as much as they respect physical work, People go, the guy that works in construction work from 12 hours a day, that's the guy that should be tired. People don't understand how much creative work will fuck up your mind to the point where you feel like absolutely crippled, and you wish you had a physical job where you can just go there and be kind of like automatic. You just got to do what you do, and your body is a lot better at telling you when it's about to fail than your mind is.
I think like it's just not just like game development, but anything like self-employment. It requires a lot of discipline. Like, of course, you have a lot of pressure from like for yourself and from the community to like kind of deliver, like updates and things. And yes, like creative burnout is absolutely a thing. However, for us, like we try to communicate with our community as much as possible to kind of keep them like updated on the game, because as much as like that's where like the discipline part comes in, as much as like we're trying to make something in the background, we also want to be transparent with our community and say this is where the state of the game is at, and like update them on the progress of the game so they can follow along as well. So I think it's like that part is also very important to this kind of work.
I definitely agree that transparency is the best way to go about developing. But I don't know how many people you have in your team. I don't know if it's just you two. Once you have to be the face of a company that has a lot of people, and you have to be the person responsible for everyone's work ethic, that's when the real headaches start.
Yep. So towards that, or what you said is about the burnout, the pressure, and all that. I feel like for me, what's always been the hardest is the fear of disappointing people.
Yes.
Because not everything is just in your hands. You have a team behind you, and if it's, let's say you have two artists, one of them falls sick because of the flu, etc. That will cause delays in a project. That's just normal. I mean, everyone needs to recover from a sickness. But you need to tell the community, hey, you need to delay an update. And that always instills that fear of disappointment.
Yep.
Because you were like, hey, we have this cool update coming next month. And then, no, something went wrong. You have to delay it.
Yeah,
and there's only so many times you can delay where you feel like, okay, now I failed.
Yep. 100%. I'm backing you 100% on that. It really is that, and you develop some sort of fear where you're like, if I don't deliver anything that is absolutely amazing or anything short of amazing, I feel like I failed these people. Especially because a lot of people, some people will see like, okay, this guy is a dev. No one is invested in the game as much as he is, and that might be true because that's your baby, but being arrogant to the point where you feel like no one has kind of like a right to be passionate about your project. I'm not going to say as much as you, but there's people that are very invested in your project. They want to see more of that character. They are expecting more of that character, and you fail them. And that's what Sigin4 was saying in the chat. He says those fears probably compound, and if it keeps getting pushed back further and further, it is. At some point, you're like,
stage 3.
Regardless of what I release, I failed. People are going to dissect this brutally. I'm going to get murdered. Like, people are going to be so cruel about this, and it's really, some people can't take that pressure, and they just at some point they're like, I'll never release anything ever again.
Absolutely. And for me, another thing that obviously it goes back to F95. People can just write whatever they want. Yes, you can say it doesn't affect me because it's just a random person, but it does.
It does. It destroys.
And if you sometimes read comments like, "Why are you not releasing an update every month? It shouldn't take that long. It's not that much work. Other devs are doing it too, so why can't you?" And then it's like, yeah, but you don't know what is going on behind the scenes. You don't know the full picture. And that always kind of like, it chips away a little bit at I guess it's the passion behind it. The passion doesn't go away, but it does instill that fear of, okay, you're disappointing people constantly.
No, people
and I feel like that is what
you.
sometimes makes people quit a project rather than sticking with it.
People
At the end of the day, like, you can't make everyone happy, right? So like that just goes beyond like the work we do, but especially as a creative, there is like this element of like you said earlier, like it's kind of like your baby, right? So like you create a project and like if people like have negative feedback, but we also have to take into account that there are tons of people out there like enjoying your game and not providing any feedback. Of course, like we appreciate all feedback, like positive or negative. But you know, like if your game is selling and your game has like on Steam, and you know, if people are enjoying the game, like not everyone will, like, you know, you don't comment on every single product you purchase on a day-to-day basis, right? Like whether it's physical or like digital,
absolutely.
like a game. I just wanted to mention that, like, of course, like if you enjoy a product, like, you know, some like a nice review or like a nice kind of comment does go a far way, as much as like, you know, if you have a negative feedback, yeah, it might, you know, mentally might be a little bit hard, but at the end of the day, you know, you just have to say like, okay, like we're developing a product that we have envisioned for, and you know, thank you for your feedback, and like, you know, we either whether we incorporate it or not, that as long as it aligns with our vision, we will take it to heart, and we take it from there. So like, I think what you guys have achieved is quite amazing. Not everyone gets this far, and even if the people who quit midway, I think even the effort of, you know, trying to start something should be something that should be lauded for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, for
but
sure.
you said something that is it sounds like common sense. Like no one comments on every game that they play. There are games usually, and this is, you know, obviously you start doing some research on marketing and whatnot, and you end up learning regardless if you want it or not, and eventually you understand that usually that people that heavily criticize your game either have something against you or they have something against the game, but it doesn't always come, or most of the times it doesn't come from a bad place. Maybe they loved the game so much that since you disappointed them on something very specific, they're like, I want to love this game more, but I can't because of this, and then they attack that. And they're not attacking you. They really want to see the game succeed. They just feel like they get so emotional about it that they feel like attacking is the only way to get stuff done. And there's this taboo about Patreon games, that there's devs that are milking people. Like, people have no idea what any of those devs are going through. And there's a lot of devs that are definitely milking people out of their money and working, you know, the excuses are really bad. But for me, for instance, where in 12 years I got a burnout once, and I had my parents died in a very short span of time. My mom went through a neurodegenerative disease and whatnot. I went through really rough times, and I wasn't even being able to be either a good developer or a good human, and you know, taking my time to heal and be there for other people, because you're so afraid of failing on both sides that at some point you're like a shell of yourself. And the thing is that, like, regardless you want it or not, you're not going to comment on every game that you purchase. But as a developer, you're going to feel almost the need to defend yourself against every single comment that people throw your way. And that will absolutely either destroy you emotionally or completely drain your energy to the point of like, I can't continue doing this. People are being absolutely unfair about my game, but I can't keep answering with a wall of text every single time I am attacked. So at some point you're like, you either turn your back on it and you move on, or basically they will drain you out of every single ounce of energy. If you try to defend your game, you know, like a zealot, it will destroy you.
Yeah, I mean, we're all human at the end of the day, and of course, like, getting negative feedback is not always pleasant, right? And it also depends on the degree of the feedback. Maybe it's like constructive criticism where, like, you know, they say it in like a nicer tone and say like, oh, I would really like to see this incorporated in game. Like, I was not satisfied with this part. And there are people that, like you said, it's not necessarily hate, or, you know, maybe they're too passionate about a project that they get their emotions elevated, and the way they say it or voice their feedback can come off as an attacking manner. But really, like, I feel like the opposite of love is disinterest and not hate, right?
Correct.
So if they have some kind of passion for your game, they will comment on it. So I think it's like a kind of like, you have to like ground yourself as the people who are creating and developing, like a kind of like a perspective switch, and say like, you know, yes, like this comment may upset me, or this, like, this person seems like it's unfairly criticizing my product and by extension me, but at the end of the day, it is still interest in the game, and maybe there is something we can take from the feedback, right? So whether it is negative or positive, and actually criticism, like constructive criticism, is great. It actually helps to build the product to a better standard, right? So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, but that's in general. Sometimes it feels like it's the unfair side of it. It's when you feel like, oh, they're wrong and they're being unfair about my game. It's not about the criticism. Is that they are making an attack on something that comes off to you like that's completely wrong. Like they just didn't get this part, or that's completely different from what is the reality, and it starts feeling like an attack, and it starts feeling more unfair than it is criticism. Because criticism, I'm perfectly fine with any level of criticism, but at some point you're like, I'm doing this out of passion. I need to stop trying to please everyone. I'm gonna do my product, and whoever likes it, and whoever doesn't, it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree 100%.
In your side, Candiru, who would you say were your biggest influences, like growing up, in terms of like artists, writers, or specific games? You already mentioned Lightning Warrior Ready. What other games were like big influences for you on the way you develop your game?
So it's definitely, to me, I don't think I would be even a gamer without that game. It is I very young. There was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. If I think back now how small the game data is on that cartridge, it amazes me even more to nowadays. But otherwise, I'm not sure how known that game is in the English-speaking community, but
wait, Ocarina of Time
series. I know a Gothic series.
Oh, I don't think I know what the game it is.
Gothic is from a German developer. And it's also it's a very old school RPG that definitely also formed me. But otherwise, it's the Mass Effect series, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, CD Projekt Red. You can clearly see, for example, with Cyberpunk, how much influence that has in Voidbound already. We kind of designed some of the areas around what you see in Cyberpunk in Night City. And if we think about the Aero area, it's House Game. It's definitely a one up there. And Lily Tales from Tunnel Number 73.
The dungeon crawler.
Exactly, and the studio Lilith. I'm not sure, Black Lilith, Anime Lilith.
Yeah, they do a lot more than just games. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's definitely the Tamani series that always. And yeah, obviously Lightning Warrior Ready series has 3 parts in case people are interested.
Yeah, I definitely see a pattern there. Like I know most of the games that you mentioned, and yeah, for Bloodlust we didn't actually plan to do something like that, but the more we worked on the game, the more we were feeling that the game could really strive as kind of like a dystopic cyberpunk style game, and we definitely went for it. The first game that I actually tried to develop was kind of like a steampunk game, but that one died. Like the artists, we had creative differences, because I tried to make the game and said I want to hire you for the art, and at some point he's like, no, I want to decide the art, the story, everything, and you just code the game. And I was like, but that's not what we agreed on, and we decided to part ways, and that's when I had the idea for like 4 different games. But yeah, I think people were a little bit hard on CDPR, but in one way I get it, because they made a lot of promises that they broke, and it's kind of like the same thing that the guys at No Man's Sky did. But I definitely feel like it's a sort of a repetition that can be healed, it can be repaired.
Yeah, it should be avoided in the future as well.
Yes.
I do agree that the criticism to CD Projekt Red is fair, because the way Cyberpunk launched, and what they showed at E3, they are completely two different worlds.
And people pre-ordered years before.
Exactly this. I think they were too ambitious. But I have to say now, with Phantom Liberty out, and the game as it stands now, it does live up to what they wanted to do. I'm still sad about the third-person cinematics, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, I was even sad that they removed some glitches like the Karenzikov jumping and whatnot. I played the game in some of the earlier versions, and they removed some of the glitches that were like, "Ah, that was actually a fun glitch."
Like, yeah, I played through the whole game when it fresh came out. I didn't have too many issues.
Yeah, but you could literally climb buildings with your sword. You could in a very specific manner. You could use Karenzikov to run faster than cars. The game was really fun because there was a lot of animation canceling, and they fixed a lot of that. And I actually feel like the game lost a little bit from those fixes. If you add something to the game, especially since it's a single player game, and if it's fun, even if it's a little broken, in my opinion, it's one of those things. This is no longer a bug. This is a feature, guys.
I think the reason they mainly fixed it because back then there was still the idea of
multiplayer, yeah. I think that was the same. What about you, Loryana? How did you end up finding Cursed Atelier? What was kind of like your process?
Oh, well, I mean, I was friends with him for a long time before I figured out that he was developing a game. I didn't know exactly what kind of game he was developing, and I think he didn't really want to say he's developing an adult game from the get-go.
No one does.
No one does.
But he did mention to me, but he refused to tell me, like, what is the name of his...
There's a big stigma.
Yeah, like what is the name of his his studio, or what's the name of the game he's developing. So one time he shared an art with it, and it had his company name in the artwork, and that's how I found his Patreon.
That was a big mistake. Not jokes aside.
And then I secretly backed him for about a couple months as a Patreon, and I told him later about it. He was very, very embarrassed. But I would just want to like show my support as a friend, because like at the time, like I think he was kind of going like, oh no, my Patreon numbers are going down, and I was like, he was a little bit bummed about that. So I was like, it was like $5 a month or something, but I just kind of like backed him in secret.
That's so nice. I see why you guys are
Can give a bit of a mindset on the Patreon numbers. I saw what we earn monthly or what the follower count is on there as a form of how well the project is doing or how well the game is doing. And when the numbers started dropping, obviously finances go up and down, people stop pledging, they come back, etc. It does not reflect the game at all. It's more a currency because it's in the end donations. But I internalized lower number, shitty product.
Yep. I went through the same thing.
And it took a while to get out of that mindset.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
another thing. That's another thing that will destroy you. You're getting like almost immediate feedback, and you're like, oh no, people didn't like my game. Oh, okay, yeah, well, it was good while it lasted. It's gonna die now.
Well, sometimes you also don't get any feedback at all. There was a good chunk of months where there were likes and some occasional comments, but there was not feedback, positive or negative. It's sometimes hard to see. Does that mean you're going the right direction? Because you feel like if you go the right direction, there's probably going to be some positive comment. But if you go the wrong direction, there will probably be some negative comments. So I always interpreted no feedback as, okay, it's going the right direction.
I think generally people are more likely to voice when they're upset about something
Oh,
than when they're
there's
happy
studies
about
about that.
something. Yeah, exactly. So it's
people
like
are
it's
much
more,
more
and it's
likely.
also yeah, and in the sea of like maybe some positive comments, you like the one negative comment like sticks with you. That can happen because like as human beings, like we kind of like focus on the negative and try to like correct that or like try to like mitigate that, right? So
I rebalanced the combat 5 times because of negative comments. and I didn't have to.
I was
Yeah, at the
guilty
end
of
of
the
the
same
day,
thing,
yeah.
but like I did. There's a game that we have called Floating Ares IF that has it has our Halloween mini game, and Isaac is someone that loves. Isaac is someone that works for us, and he loves making like very convoluted and like interesting puzzles and whatnot. He's one of the people that likes to do the craziest mechanics and whatnot. And the amount of times I had to tell him like, bro, you need to tone it down. It's an entire game. Because he was making these crazy mechanics, and I'm like, you understand that if we make content that only like 10% of the people can play, we're losing a lot of like a lot of hours in content that 90% of our supporters will not get to play, or people will just pick to choose the minigame. Like, you need to tone it down. And he was so bummered that some of his minigames were so convoluted. There's one that I got the idea from like Pokemon, where you touch a teleport and you're teleported somewhere else. And I was like, okay, make that simple and always make it where if you touch a teleport, if you take the same teleport, you will go back to the place where you were, so people can kind of like path the teleports. And he was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. That's too easy. So a couple weeks later, people were complaining that nobody was being able to finish that minigame. And I'm looking at her like, you're gonna make a hot fix today. You're gonna make a hot fix today to fix that, because a lot of people are not being able to finish the minigame at all.
Yep.
So we just decided to give people a way to like if you fail like 3 times or whatever, you just skip to the end and whatnot. People were so bummed at that teleport puzzle, because you literally had to grab like a pencil and paper and like pad your way through until you actually figure out how it was. Needless to say that when we released the kind of like the solution, everybody was like, Jesus freaking Christ, thank you so much. We hated this minigame.
Yeah, we had the exact same thing. There was a puzzle where basically you have to step on a tile and that glows up. If you step on it again, it loses its glow, and you have to basically go around and make sure that every tile is glowing. People rage quitted the game because of that puzzle.
You think people rage quit that mini game sounds simple. How about one where you have 3 inputs? You have literally like three switches. All of them have 2 stages, on or off. So you need to figure out what's the position in which the door will open. We're talking about 3 switches with 2 possible positions. The number of combinations that are possible for that is like 6. People were blocking it at. People were hating that minigame because they weren't able to figure out a minigame where you have 3 switches and you just need to figure out the position in which you need to be for the door to open. You literally just need to go on, off, off, and there's like 6 combinations, and people were not passing it and getting frustrated at it.
Stuff like that we had as well, and then the genuine or the general feedback that we got from the majority was, please add a puzzle skip feature.
Yeah, that's why I ended up doing.
And I was like, no, I am not doing that. I'm standing my ground. I will tone down the difficulty of the puzzles, but in my vision the game has puzzles. Otherwise you just walk from A to B and you're done. I don't want that. I want there to be gameplay. There is one area where people ask, they come into Discord and ask for solutions. It's a save where you have 2 posters where you need to look at, and you have a calendar.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
You have the month November circled in red, and you have the date circled in red. And both European way and American way of, you know how the dates are. Sometimes it's month, day, and day, month. Both work. And the amount of people that got stuck on that confused me, until I realized they were looking at a different poster that was a beer commercial that had $10.99 as the price. And I was like, is it not enough that the November is circled to be the clue that is the right poster? That's why it's always a hard balance to strike between adding too much gameplay in a porn-related game.
Yep.
Because what I learned nowadays, people want to get to the port as fast as possible with as little gameplay as possible.
That's true. That's 100% true. It hurts me, but it's 100% true. We actually want to make a game that is more than just a porn, and most of the times that's not what people want.
Exactly.
Yeah. On the other hand, we do have some feedback saying that they like it that it's a good game, and then like the porn is kind of like the cherry on top, right? So it's like
that's what we wish everyone thought about it.
Yeah, I mean that might be our intention, but not everyone will like see it that way, and they just like, I just want to get to the next scene as fast as possible.
That's why we added like the CG room with context. Like if you just want to see the scenes, go to the CG room and the context is there. That's it. But if you want to play the game, like that mini game as the solution, you can actually find another room that actually has the solution written on a piece of paper for people that can't logically resolve the puzzle. I don't on it, whatever. But we do have a paper. You just have to find it. But yeah, it's really hard to strike kind of like
a compromise. Yes.
Yeah, a compromise between the solution and making the mini games interesting.
Yeah, what we are just doing is the more you interact with the object, the clearer the character is with the dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
At first it's like, maybe this is related to the save, and then as you go on later this must be the code. Or maybe, hey, it's maybe the month and the date.
But it works either way.
Yeah.
So when you decided to make Voidbound, why did you choose the like an action platformer? Why did you choose like a kind of like not side scroller, but like an actual platformer? Is it influences? You didn't mention anything like Metroid or anything of the sort. So what led you to make a game like Voidbound?
So for us, Voidbound, I was always a fan of top-down games, like Zelda: Link to the Past, etc. And I like the perspective. And that is kind of like the main reason why we went with it. The thing I would personally, if I would turn back time now, I would love to do a 3D game. But let's be honest, for a very first time game of a studio doing a 3D game is probably the worst financial decision you can do if you don't have the funding.
I mean, I agree. It definitely, like with AI, or depending on how AI is evolving, maybe in the near future it won't look as much like that, I guess. Working on 3D games might be, you might not need to do as much of the assets. You can actually get a lot done with artificial intelligence, I think.
Yeah, I personally, I'm not using any AI for the project, and I am personally going to keep it like that. I don't mind if people use it, for concepting, etc., but I feel like in the final product it should not use AI.
Yeah, especially
but in
because
the end,
you can tell.
Whoever wants to use it, be my guest. I am not using it.
Yeah, it feels like the game is losing, it loses uniqueness, right? When you're using AI. It feels like in your game you use I would say like 90% of your tile sets are original creations, or at least huge edits on existing tile sets, right? But that gives your game a lot more uniqueness. You have the lights about your game, obviously, is something that you spend a lot of time into creating the environment, creating the setting. You definitely spend a lot of time into that, into the unique battle system and whatnot. It actually makes the game kind of like more yours. So when people use AI, it kind of feels like your game. If you use like public assets or AI, it loses personality. It starts blending into something that anyone else has done, right?
Absolutely.
At least that's the way I see it. Especially a game that you obviously put so much wrench time in your game. Everything that you do is mostly your unique creations, your own tile sets, the time you spend perplexing the shadows, the lightning in your game and whatnot. You obviously care a lot about that. So adding AI to a game like yours will definitely feel like watering down a lot of work that you had done personally, and
Exactly.
you feel proud of, right?
For me, I said the way I see AI, I think it should be used as a tool to support a concepting phase.
Correct.
Let's say you have an idea, you can throw it into the AI to give you back random ideas towards what your core idea is. Maybe it gives you some a eureka moment. But I don't think it should ever come to the point where you just write a prompt in the AI, hey, make me this image, their characters need to be doing that. Okay, I'm done, I'm putting it into the game.
Yeah, the way I see AI right now is literally just placeholders. Like, okay, we weren't able to finish this by this patch. This image, we literally say this amount of content, like this image, this background, whatever it is, this is AI. This will be fixed later. That's what we see right now to the extent of like AI.
What I would personally do in stuff like that, I would not use AI, I would just use the sketch as a placeholder. If it's, let's say,
Even
if
better.
it's not finished yet.
Even better. Yeah, because there's so much that goes into creating an image. You have to draw it, then color it, then animate it. Then there's so much that goes into actually creating an enticing. And then you have to panel it, write the story for it, and it's much easier to write the story or the dialogue afterwards if you create the image, because you can kind of go with what the facial expressions are doing and whatnot. Other than it is, let me write the scene first and then try to draw for it. It always it just feels. It doesn't come out as good.
Yeah, our process is we concept the image first. Then we do changes to the concept. Then it goes into the first stage of the line art. And that is when we start writing the scene to figure out, okay, we have this image now. What are going to be the variation steps? How do we want to end it? And that is when then the artist fills the gaps according to the script.
Yeah, that's very similar to the way that we do our things. Regarding the story of the game or the setting, what made you choose your game Central Fantasy? Like you said, obviously that Cyberpunk was a big influence on the way that you decided to create Valbound. What made you choose this specific style or this specific story or style of gameplay?
For me, it was always, if I ever going to make a game, it was always going to be a science fiction game. I have absolutely nothing against medieval and fantasy. But I feel like that market has already a lot to offer. Science fiction is still relatively new. Well, not new, but it's not as explored as fantasy, in my opinion. Science fiction also, for me personally, allows to explore so many different ideas, mechanics, and in a sense of it's not magic, but it can be based on technology. For example, let's say you have a coffee machine. How can you make this coffee machine feel sci-fi? Sci-fi needs to be something where it doesn't require many steps from the person anymore. It is as fast and directly done as possible, where in Magic, hey, you could snap your finger and you have a coffee ready. I like to see the technology behind it. And things like you said, Cyberpunk. What always drew me to science fiction is the neon lights.
The
I feel like with
feel.
the right, with the right amount of shadowing and darkness, you can create such vibrant and contrasting image just by glowing up light sticks, in a sense.
No, it's true. Like that was kind of like even the cultural like feeling of the 80s. It was just like pink and blue neons everywhere, arcades and big neon signs everywhere. That was kind of literally like a vibe of an entire decade. So there's definitely like a very specific appeal to it. But when you create a game like this, you definitely decide to go off the norm because, okay, you are doing your own assets, so you're making your own noises, your own Foley, the zzz of the doors opening and whatnot. But it's so easy. Like if you start with RPG Maker, and you don't purchase any assets or you don't get free assets, what happens? All you got is epic style
Fantasy.
medieval assets. So a lot of people work with what they got. And then if you start playing all the games from the LSI and whatnot, 90% of them are going to end up being medieval games. So that's what is going to dictate culturally what are most of the games that are going to come out. So people like you that try to do a game that goes off the norm, obviously you're opening ways for other developers to actually see your game, and this is why it's great to have interviews with people that completely step off the norm. I'm not a perfect example for it right now because I created an RPG Maker NTR game, and now I'm creating one that is mostly like an RM game, which are also very common, and Bloodlust is going to be our first project that is a little bit off the norm. And people like you that do things that are completely different from the 90% of the clones that come out offer such amazing input on games, because most people will get the typical medieval type songs with the typical medieval type tile sets with the typical medieval type gameplays and storylines. That this kind of becomes culture, and this is where people are drawn to and want to make their game kind of like, right? And you went for something completely different, and I hope that your game, as well as similar games like yours, definitely feel like people want to create similar games, or people want to feel like creating games different from the norm, different from the typical medieval game, and they see your game and they're like, oh, then it's possible to create something completely different and completely interesting. And I feel like that's one of the things that your game brings to the market, where that other games in general don't.
I mean, I love some medieval fantasy, not gonna lie, but the way with sci-fi, I think you do have a kind of like a unique setting where like imagination is your limit, right? So you can really, because it's like like a kind of like a future, like we can imagine really anything that could happen in the future with different, like interacting with different planets, galaxies and species, mechanics and technology, you know. So we incorporate a lot of these, like it really allows for like the kind of the creative freedom with sci-fi. So for example, like this is a loot game, so we can be very creative with the technology. Like we have not just, slimy tentacles, but we also have robo tentacles, or we have different alien species like spit roasting your character, or you have very creative dildos or you have like a biosuit. So the possibilities are quite endless.
That is,
and VR
sorry.
pregnancy as well.
That is incredibly interesting, but you also need, like, the way I'm seeing is that I'm not attacking people that make medieval games. The thing is, you're a dev, and not everybody has the development capabilities of Candiru. A lot of people are like, I use the assets that are available to me because I cannot afford, or I don't have access to anything better, or I cannot create them on my own. And going out of your way to create something like a sci-fi game with a million different possibilities, where you can go to like dozens of different planets with different creatures and different biomes and everything like this, it involves creating tile sets for all those biomes. It involves creating different moods, different songs for all those things. And a lot of people, just from imagining the Herculean task ahead of them, they're like, oh, okay, this will look cool, but let me stay away from it. And people stick with what's safe and what's kind of like the culture. And the culture right now, especially what we got from the L site, was the medieval games. And for instance, in the West, we have a lot of the visual novels, kind of like Housewife Goes Crazy in Town. So definitely there's games and there's systems that enable all these fetishes and whatnot, and it's cultural. And people that decide to do things out of the norm, like Candiru, and go like, nope, I don't care, I'm going to invest the time, and I'm going to create this sci-fi game regardless of how much time I have to put into the game, and regardless of how complex it is, I'm going to do it. Because I did the same thing when I started creating a game that was essentially 5 games with 5 completely different gameplays. People told me, that's stupid, it can't be done. They're like, especially with the team your size, you will never be able to do a game as big as you're envisioning Fleeting Hours to be. And 12 years later, surprise, motherfucker. And that's it kind of is that, like, people are kind of like, it's kind of like school. They try to fit you in boxes and tell you this is safe. And so 90% of the games are going to fit the this is safe type of development. And developers like Candiru are very far apart from each other's.
think you can't always play it safe. Especially game development always inherits risk. You don't know at the start is it gonna work out in the end or not. But the only thing that in the end can stop you is yourself.
Yeah,
Do you have the will and the patience and the endurance to stick with what you want to create?
but yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, you need to be passionate, and you need to be creative, and you need to want to. I want to do this. Like, I could not be working on any other game. I want to do this, and that's how you stick with it. And in your case, you wanted to do Voidbound. You didn't just want to make a game. You wanted to do Voidbound specifically, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was always the idea. The original vision was to kind of try to create an RPG maker No Man's Sky, but yeah, that was scrapped. Very quickly.
Jesus.
Because that scope was way too big. But as you said, with how you did it with the 5 games into one, there are people that are always going to say, you can't do it. To me, I sometimes see that as a challenge, if I'm honest. Like I hold my beer, I'm going to prove you wrong. There's also, we had a review on itch that said, it's a cool game, but it said it's never going to be finished.
Ugh, yeah.
And I'm like, I worked on it now for so many years, do you really think I'm going to give up now? It will be finished, just you wait.
So, some people do. I can definitely point out to a few games that people have been investing, their lifetime in them. One that I can think of is Lily of the Valley, which is a game that is, relatively well known especially in the Western Hemisphere. And that game, the devs been working for it in like 5-6 years, and suddenly they decided to disappear. But yeah, I definitely feel what you're saying, and that kind of ties to what we were saying earlier. Sometimes that person wasn't just trying to attack you; they were trying to nudge you into like, wink, wink. Hey, Dev, can you finish this, please? They expect those backhanded attacks to feel like, oh, I'm going to show you wrong, and you release the game, and they're like, oh no, you showed me wrong. Now let me enjoy the full game. It's kind of a weird way to look at it, but it feels like.
What I can tell you is, I did write down the username.
Their username?
I wrote down their username, and I'm ready to tag them when I'm releasing one.
Oh my god, that feels a little petty, but I totally get it.
I did not know you did this.
Trust me, in the end, I will not do it. But I have it written down.
I will do the same thing.
It's like a little,
I'm so
like,
petty.
mental ribbon. It's like a very, like, it's like you have it on your wall. You're like, you see.
I told you, this emotionally drains you. You really want to get back at some of these people, and it's true what people say. The best way to get at your critics is by being successful.
Exactly. And like at the end of the day, like, you also have to kind of like take into account, it's like, I'm still me as a person. It's like, just their negative feedback does not devalue me as a person or a creator.
It's really hard to detach to who you feel like.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
So for Voidbound, you did mention that you wanted the game to be central, and I think Lori said this, but you want the game to be central and the anti-scenes to feel like the cherry on top of the cake that is the game. But how did you approach writing the sex scenes for the game? Are they central to the gameplay, or they feel like a bonus? Are they fan service, or they're tied to like plot critical moments or character development?
They generally happen from a rule set that we have internally about when we create, let's say, a dungeon with a storyline. We have the rule that we're gonna have at least one normal enemy and one boss at minimum. But combat encounters, for me, they should have a scene tied to them. That's just what I remember from back in the days when I started playing the earlier games. And that is ingrained in me. I know that some people don't like that. Sorry to disappoint, then Voidbound is probably not for them regarding that. For other things, is what we generally do is we write a quest line first. And while we write the quest line, we think about where could we put in fan service moments. And those fan service moments sometimes get expanded into an actual scene. We also have, when we have characters interact with each other, we try to figure out what exactly between those characters fits the best, and then see, is that a character that is where we want to pursue kind of like a romance route, and then we expand it as well. It's for us, it's never we just create a scene for sake of creating a scene. We want it to be tied into what a character or what a person is experiencing.
Yeah, we want the scenes to be purposeful, right? It needs to serve a purpose into either the story or the gameplay. So, for instance, when you're in combat, oh no, like the enemy attacks you and maybe your suit gets ripped a little bit, and then like you have like these combat cut-in images where during the combat you do see the scene, so you don't have to wait for a combat to end. You do see the scenes in midway. So when I said it's a cherry on top, that was just like someone's feedback. But on our side, we are tying the loot scenes into the gameplay as much as possible, so that you can enjoy a good game and the scenes as much as possible. And we throw in the scenes, like we have an absurd amount of scenes. We have a lot of scenes, so you won't be disappointed when you play the game. It's like, oh, is it just gonna be more gameplay and like not enough loot scenes? Like no, like the loot scenes are scattered in the combat. They're in the main story.
And it
they're
feels rewarding.
in all the side quests. Yeah, and we also try to balance like the more like silly moments and also like the serious moments, and like we try to like have it as much as possible. And like currently, I think Candiru says there's about 50 plus scenes, and it's growing. And we're still making new monsters you can fight, like new enemy types, and they'll also come with their own slew of combat cut-in scenes, defeat scenes, and so forth.
But when you decide to create the scenes, because this is something like, I don't know if you played one of the entire games that people consider. Well, it was at least one of the entire games that had the biggest investment, which made something like close to like $3 million on Kickstarter. There's the space game. I don't remember the name right now.
Subverse?
Sorry, what?
Subverse? I
Yeah,
think?
Subverse, correct. I was trying to opening my Steam because I remember someone actually gifted me the game back then, and was like, I'm like, why did you give me the game? They're like, I want you to make a review on it. At the time, I was making reviews on entire games, and well, I felt the game was incredibly, it was rough because it was early on. But the thing about Subverse that I want to compare into your game is that the entire scenes feel completely detached from the game. The game is fun, and the scenes are they're decent, but it depends on who plays. Some might think the scenes are better than others, and some might actually not like the gameplay. But the thing is, you get to a point in the game, and then you unlock some money, and then you use that money to unlock scenes with some of your crewmates. And it feels like, in general, like 99% of the scenes are not tied to the story whatsoever. They're just like, oh, let me get credits on this part of the game to unlock scenes that are completely detached from the game. And a lot of people hate that type of gameplay because there's no story to the scenes, there's no context, there's no nothing. There's no emotional growth with the characters from your crew. It's just like, oh, I have enough money to unlock a new scene. In Voidbound, you have scenes that are a consequence, so to speak, of not fighting well, or having your suit ripped off, or losing a battle against an enemy, and you have scenes that are tied to the story. How do you decide how much of the game is this has to be tied to this character in the story because it's important for context and story and lore and whatnot, and how much is going to be used in enemy groping and battle sex and whatnot? You already mentioned that you try to have at least one enemy per dungeon and one boss. How do you balance the aspect, and how do you see the importance of having the entire scenes tied to the gameplay aspect of the game?
To me, it's or rather, to us, it boils down to choice. When a player, for example, the way the game starts is Callie has Psy abilities. But she doesn't know that, so she wakes up at the start of during the intro and is being tested on by a doctor, and they realize that as you are more sexual, your psi potential grows. That is a core part about her character. So as the game goes on, you can meet characters that can help you understand that more, and it's a player's choice. Do they want to interact with that character? If yes, that character or the scene that then plays ties into the whole main narrative about that psi ability or the psi potential. The same thing is if you go in the game to a disco, you can talk with people. And some people have, for example, you can compliment their nails or their hair. And that conversation leads on more and more, and they might invite you back home. Because you complimented the nails, the scene is gonna be your classic romance scene, but it ends with Callie getting her nails done with that other character. So every scene that we do is always tied to what is happening in the game. So if you are in an environment that has, let's say, there is a couch in a room. In the scene, it will have that couch. It will not just suddenly be something completely different. And in terms of balance, we don't really think about it as balance that, hey, we need to have as many battle elements as normal scenes. It's just, hey, we want to write this quest line, and we want to integrate a scene in there.
Yeah, as long as it like has like a logical flow to why the scene exists, or like of course for enemies, like people are expecting this is Voidbound, we are expecting like the combat cut-ins, and we have them in. And for scenes that feels natural to have in the main story, we'll put them in the main story. And for scenes that are like maybe a little bit more light-hearted and fun, and people who enjoy the side content, like if we have any silly ideas, we will put them maybe in a side quest or something like that, or like a random encounter in the main city hub of the story. So like, and we also like kind of have that psionic abilities she mentioned. It's kind of like a horn radar, so it's like people are always like everyone is kind of down to have sexy time with the main character. She's basically like her psionic abilities are always like screaming like I'm horny. So that always gives like kind of like the creative freedom for us to make scenes that like so like everyone is kind of like down to have like sexy moments with the character. So yeah, that's kind of how we balance it.
Some people will definitely feel like that's unrealistic, but is it that unrealistic when you have a beautiful female just open to sexual experiences and whatnot? A lot of people will think that Fleeting Hours is the game that I created is unrealistic because not everyone will be hitting on your character on that manner. And I feel like people, especially guys, don't understand how it's like to be a beautiful female, going through life, and how easy it will be for someone to be able to be in all those situations, and how people, especially beautiful women, are rest in their jobs and whatnot. So if you were receptive to all those advances, real life will actually be kind of like a real life version of Fleeting Hours. And
yeah, absolutely, it's like it's a fantasy, right? Like people play games to escape kind of like the mundane, like everyday day-to-day life, right? Like of course like these kind of encounters will not happen, like you don't encounter like sexual moments like every 5 minutes when we walk down a street, right? Like for example, we have like an exhibition mode in the game where like your character can walk around naked and like she's gonna get groped, but like that's not something like that can realistically happen in real life. Like this is kind of like that's where the fantasy element of the game comes in. It goes like, what if that happened, right? And we kind of want to give like players an experience to kind of like what if we like walk naked down a street in like an alien galaxy, like what's gonna happen to us, or like what can we do in that situation, kind of thing. So like yeah, a little bit of disbelief, like of course like the psionic abilities, like it's sci-fi, right? It's made up, right? Like of course we want, like what we want to be realistic is how the characters like like character growth and things should feel natural because we are human, so we don't want to have like a character arc like sometimes like a serious character suddenly doing something different for the sake of it. No, like we want the realism to be grounded in the character development and world building. But things like, her having psionic abilities kind of in the realm of fantasy. So we kind of want to balance that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, I mean, when we play out those type of scenes, it's always like this guy that looks like very thug or very rough or whatever. Because honestly, in real life, how is a guy going to react to a woman appearing naked in real life in front of him? You're probably not going to feel like, oh, she's naked, that means she wants to be groped. What you're going to think is like, oh, she's probably like playing a game with her boyfriend. They weren't expecting to get caught, and boom, and now this is awkward. It doesn't play out like the game at all. And I think that's something that people forget to differentiate, is that games are games and real life is real life. And even if you have some crazy ass thoughts, even in real life, the biggest difference is if you act upon those feelings or not, or if you act upon those crazy ideas or not. And that's the distinction that people forget to make. Like, real life are not games and should never be, taken as games. For Voidbound, what will you say is the key mechanic of your game? Like, you already mentioned all the uniqueness in the sci-fi, but if you had to point out one game mechanic, what do you believe makes your game unique or fun, and why did you decide to implement it?
I would definitely say our combat system. We took the biggest inspiration from XCOM, and we basically recreated that combat system in RPG Maker, where you have a grid-based combat field where you move around, take positions, and you can shoot enemies from a distance, but the enemies can also move around and shoot from a distance. So definitely that is the thing that I would say makes us stand out the most. You can see it if you played, for example, for Crysis. It's a little bit more advanced than that. Just in a smaller form factor. And the reason we wanted to do that, I'm gonna be as honest as I can, I was tired of turn-based combat. In terms of just, you have attack and you attack a sprite. Just on it's always the 1 against 2 battle sprites. That's the classic RPG Maker.
In games in general, or RPG Maker?
In RPG Maker mainly. Because most Aero games there have always the same combat system. Generally, people do not try to expand on it or strive too far away from that.
Yeah, it definitely, like, the gameplay aspect of it, like, of course I've played the game, and I was kind of surprised that you do need you need to think a little bit about your strategy. It's not just, you pew from a distance and your enemies die, or like, you sometimes get into these, you trigger these combat cut-ins and stuff because you actually made the wrong move. You're like, oh no. So I think what we wanted to do is kind of like, satisfy the gamer aspect of it. Like, we want the players to feel like they're actually playing a game. And like I think that's where the combat system is quite unique with that. And, throw the arrow elements, like integrate the arrow elements into it. So I think that was very, very unique and refreshing, because I've never played a game like that before, where like, your actions kind of directly influence, and it feels more interactive because you are moving around in the combat field and you are kind of making the active decisions to like, oh, maybe if I place my character there, I can avoid their attack. Or maybe you want to get attacked on purpose because you want to see a scene. Right. Or sometimes the enemy like outsmarts you and you're like, oh, I did not expect the enemy to do that. And then like, oh no, I'm naked now in the combat. So like it had a lot of variety. Like every combat like felt like definitely like unique. It didn't feel like you're putting the same inputs each time. It kind of felt more creative, and that you actually had to put some thought into it, and like you're playing the game. So that's what I appreciate about Voidbound.
In Fleeting Hours, I feel like there's a lot of things that players don't actually realize. They're not making choices because it's not an obvious, if you choose this happens, and if you choose this, it doesn't. The consequences might come fairly later in the game. Would you say that's true as well for Voidbound, that people don't figure out right away they are actually making decisions?
Yes, we have a bunch of choices in the game that where some of them they kind of like the outcome sorry, not the outcome but the consequence, you see it directly, but some of those are also happening a lot later. For example, if a character asks you something, it does depend on how you answer them. Kind of like how they react, and afterwards they might also at a later point, there might still be kind of like, how is that? There might be a variation of a dialogue depending on what you said earlier in the game. We mainly do that obviously Voidbound is a story-focused game. It's not designed to, once you played the story one time through, that you just kind of like do a new game plus and you play the whole story again and it's different. But those little changes in choices and outcomes do add a little bit of replayability.
But even on replay, a lot of times people don't even realize the dialogue is different. For Fleeting Hours, people go like, "Oh man, I wish there was a route where this character actually reacted this way," and we're like, "This happened a lot of times. There is a route like that. What did you answer on this day like 1 week earlier?" And they're like, "Wait, if I choose this, the game changes?" Yes, the game has different outcomes depending on your choices. What did you think? We just asked you questions for no reason? And people are shocked that the game actually has, more game.
Yeah, that's the same thing for us as well. We do like to add little differences every now and then, because it allows you to role play more as the character.
Even small things like the character has experienced anal sex earlier or before, and it's like optional. And later you have a dialogue where the character complements this or that or whatever, depending on something that you did earlier, and people didn't even realize it actually matches their choices.
Yeah, I mean the choices in Voidbound as well. Like obviously we talked about the combat, but we have choices in which faction you side with, and like that can end up in you do have benefits and consequences according to your choices. So that kind of adds to the replayability. Like, what if I side with a different faction this time in a new playthrough?
So in Voidbound, what would you say were the mechanics that were most important for you to include? You mentioned that the battle system is definitely something that you wanted to make completely different. The choice system, being able to side with different factions. When you started creating the game, what were kind of like the mechanics where you felt like, I really want to add these mechanics to Voidbound?
For me, it was definitely an outfit system. And I wanted that the outfits can, depending as you go through combat, that they change, obviously, in visuals. And I integrated that into the sprites, into the menus. If you go, for example, our entire UI is custom made. So when you press escape to go to save, you have their little standing art of the main character. If you go into the outfit, you have a different version of a standing art. And it was really important to me that if your suit is getting ripped, I want to see that in every element where you see the character's art, that is also being reflected. And the same thing, another good reference or other thing that, as an inspiration, was Escape from Tarkov. I know, completely off topic, but that weapon modification system that they have with how in-depth you can do that, that is something I wanted to also put into the game. That you don't level up your character, but your strength comes from the equipment and how you modify that equipment. So if you change, let's say, the magazine on your weapon, that will allow you to attack multiple times. It will change your attack cone. It also will change the visuals of the weapon that your character is holding.
I have to say that. Sorry, go ahead, Lori. I'll speak about it later.
Oh no, I was just saying like the weapon, like you can customize your weapon, like you can add different modifiers to the weapons, and it's what was it, like 8 different parts of the weapons. So like there is tons of customization choices you can put onto your weapon. So what I liked was that you don't simply just level up. with experience when you kill an enemy. It's like you can gather parts and kind of like strengthen your weapon, and that's how you get stronger in the game.
Yeah, I was going to mention that later because I had a few questions like directly related to the game and things that I found like completely interesting. And honestly, that was one of the systems that I was like, oh my god, this looks so good, and people will just not give it the proper appreciation because I've seen games that are very similar to this, and I've seen games, especially in hentai games, where the character is wearing a completely different outfit, but people are like, listen, realistically, we are just going to reuse this asset, and it's not going to reflect the character immediate stage. And some people are like, oh, okay, it's fine because we understand why. But for me, that kind of breaks immersion. And when I saw that, I was like, this looks better than some AAA games are making. I'll give you the example of the Final Fantasy VII remake, where you input, for people that don't know, you input some spheres into your weapons. They're called materia, and the more materia you add to your weapons, you can do different spells. And there's not a huge visual representation of your materials in the game. Like the first sword has like 2 slots, and you see the first 2 slots. But if you improve the sword to have like 8 slots, you will still only see the first 2 slots. And I was like, oh, I actually thought the weapon will visually represent all the changes that you do to the game. So when I saw that on Voidbound, I was like, you have what can be considered an indie dev putting more effort into their game than an absolute behemoth out of RPG AAA games. And that's the type of stuff that as a dev I appreciate so much. The armor system being tied to your strength, kind of like V Rising, another game that I love a lot. All those mechanics that I see in your game and done better than those AAA games. I know that a lot of people will not give it proper credit, but I just want to say those things are so good and make the game feel so immersive, and I'm really happy that they decided to make them.
Thank you. It is a bit of a nightmare on the artist.
And I'm aware.
Because it's like, hey, cool, we have this one. I need 8 different parts, please. So make like 18 pieces, thank you.
Yeah, the same thing happens to us in Fleeting Hours, where she has like 90 different costumes, and we're like, listen, these she can use when she's working as a nurse, and these she can use when she's working in a nightclub. You absolutely cannot use 90 costumes being reflected in 300 plus scenes. Are you fucking crazy? Do you think we're Square Enix or something? They don't do it in their Square Enix. How do you want us to do it? So, as for iteration and feedback, you already said that your vision ultimately will always be what decides what you're going to make the game as, and you're not going to change like a scene 4 times just to please your community anymore. What role will you say that the audience feedback, especially from early access or Patreon supporters, play in shaping the final content of your game? Are there boundaries you won't cross based on fan requests, like on fetishes and whatnot?
Yeah, so we have some rules about fetishes that we will not implement no matter what. That is also just because it's something we don't feel comfortable doing. And sometimes it's also a store doesn't allow it, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I don't wanna poke the bear, so to speak. But in terms of how the community changes the shape of the game, feedback is extremely important to me personally, because it allows me to fine-tune things. There was one fan that had a random idea about how about Callie, that is our main character, how about she can work as a DJ? And I was like, that is so out there that I like it, and I will put it in. It started as a simple idea of, okay, we just add a little bit of one image and we call it a day. But I was like, okay, 2 months ago we implemented Lovent's integration into our game. And I was like, what if I implement Dance Dance Revolution with Lovent's support as part of the DJ Cali event? And what we did is we custom made a tapping rhythm game for Voidbound that interacts with your sex toys if you have them connected to the game. And all that just started from a random idea of a fan. Now, for what they if they suggest something for the main story, we generally will not do that because we have a very clear start, middle point, and end in mind where we want to go and how we want to reach it. But content outside of that in the city, the more ideas the better. But we can't implement everything.
Yeah,
but
of
we're
course.
very open to any suggestions.
Yeah, in our
Yeah, and we all.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that when it comes to Fleeting Hours, we decided to like what we do is we create like 80% of the game and we'll leave like 20% open to to just public suggestions, the ones that we feel are the best. And for instance, for Journey Abroad, for Bloodlust, we decided to add a janitor because there was such an overwhelming support for that idea that we were like, okay, guys, just give us some time, we will find a way to implement it.
Yeah, that's like the kind of like the things with the indie devs and the community, because we're like a much smaller studio. The kind of like one suggestion from like one user could have like a bigger impact on the game, where like you won't really expect that from, like you said earlier, like Square Enix or like a really big like a studio, right? And we also like in return we also actively seek community feedback.
Right.
For instance, we just made an announcement on our Discord channel, like we throw up a sketch maybe of a scene, and we're like, okay, there's scene A and scene B, we want to integrate one of them into our game. Which scene do you prefer? Like, which sketch do you prefer? Like, one is more close up and the other one is more like farther away. They might be the same pose, but maybe one like she's like upside down, like that kind of thing. And do you prefer like we once had like a character, standing art, and there was like a little dispute about the waistline of the character, so we threw it back to our communities. Like, do you prefer a thinner waistline that gives her more of an hourglass figure, or a thicker waistline that's more natural? And we kind of like, based on the votes, the votes rolled in, and we will integrate that into our game. So it's not just like they give us feedback and we take it or not. We also actively seek feedback on our end as well.
Right, we do the same. We actually decided some hairstyles and some outfits literally based on community decision. So for Voidbound, you say that we have a beginning, a mid, and a end. So in terms of like long-term vision, how far out do you plan your game's content? Like as of right now, are you constantly pivoting based on immediate market trends, or are you executed like a locked-in vision that will take years to fully realize?
So I keep personally development rather flexible, but that is more outside the story. The story is where we don't want to add too much to the story, because it's just gonna drag out the game and it's gonna make development longer and longer and longer. So what we did is we stopped the story at a good cliffhanger, so to speak. And then we decided, okay, for the next couple months, we're just gonna focus on side content. Like, to make the city felt a little bit bare to us, so we were like, okay, we want to fill the city with content for a player to explore during free roam. Now we're back on the main storyline, so we're not really doing much side content. We will leave that once we're fully done with the story. So the game plan is we finish the story, and then we focus back on side content, kind of like as post-story update.
Okay, and for regarding to advice to aspiring devs, someone that might be listening to the podcast right now and eventually want to start their own adult game project, what would you say is the single most important piece of non-technical philosophical advice you will give them?
Start small and work your way up. Basically, don't do what I did. I really wish I stuck with that as well. Don't get too over-ambitious. Don't let feature creep get the better of you. It is easier said than done, because I remember back in the days I said, nah, feature creep, it's not a thing. It doesn't affect me. It surely did. For me, game development, if you do it as a hobby, make sure it stays fun. Don't let yourself be burned out, because if you burn out, it will be noticeable in your project. Everything will the quality will go down, the fun of a player that if they interact with your product, it will also go down. For me, also another important advice that I wish someone gave me is game development is not a race. It's also not a sprint, it's a journey. Don't listen to other people saying you need to be finished at X and Y point. Go at your own pace. And what you do wrong in the first project, don't let it drag you down. Use it as an experience, as a learning point. You will do better the second project.
I 100% agree. I once saw an interview. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but I once saw an interview with Dr. Dre, the rapper slash DJ, and it was explaining he's obviously a very successful person, billionaire. His resume speaks for himself, but people were asking him what was the advice he would give people, and he's like, listen, don't go into something that you're passionate about expecting to make any money, because if you go into it expecting to make any money, you will be tied to the idea of making money, and you will stop doing stuff out of creativity. You will stop doing stuff out of passion. You are going to start making stuff like, let me see what creates money, and that's a terrible way to go about it, because if at some point you stop making money, then you stop making music or a game or whatever it is, something, the art that you're passionate about. But when you do something that you are absolutely passionate about and you just stick to it and you are creative and passionate, people will see it and you will be rewarded financially to it. But never go into a game actually just like, I want to make money out of this game. That's a terrible mindset to do, because eventually it will lead to burnouts.
100% agreed.
And it kind of ties with... So sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, that's what I was saying. It kind of ties with the idea that Candiru was saying.
Yeah, and I think it's also like about the whole money making aspect. Of course, we develop games, and if you're doing it full time, like you want to make a living out of it as well. But like you said, like I think it's like if you're only in it for the money, then a creative like this kind of product may not be for you, right? Like you need to have some kind of passion behind the product, and that's why, you know, like in the earlier part of the podcast, like a lot of negative feedback could affect you mentally, because like this is a very creative passion of yours, right? And then I think also what we're trying to do is like, you know, garner the trust with the community as well. So like once this is our first game and this is our first product. So like once we have, you know, established this trust and we have a product across the finish line, we're hoping like for the second projects and so on, you know, we have like an established fan base and we have like people kind of like looking forward to our next journey and our next product and stuff. So yeah, I think, of course, you know, everyone has to start somewhere. Like you can get all the advice in the world. I mean, we have the internet and we can always look for advice there as well. But, you know, some things you just have to kind of encounter on your own and experience, right? Like nobody has like the best first boyfriend or girlfriend, right? So it's a kind of like same with you have to like learn through the relationship. Yeah, you have to like somehow like learn through the relationship, and I think like game development is something like that too. Like you have to, you know, make some mistakes, stumble along the way, but you know, you kind of like stick to it and stick to your vision and like carry past the finish line.
Yeah, I feel like people might misunderstood what I said. I feel like you are 100% right. People that are instantly nail their first attempt are definitely the outliers. And like you said, like you have to start anywhere, but the most important part is just start. Even if you make mistakes, just start. Just start doing stuff. But yeah, it's what you said. I didn't mean like about making money. I didn't mean like you shouldn't care about making money. Obviously, you should. Everybody needs to put food on the table and has to pay for the roof. I meant if your main goal is to make money, and if that's mostly what you think about, and making the game is a byproduct, it should be the other way around. Being creative and being passionate about a project should be the main goal why you make a game, and have the money be the byproduct of that. It's a necessary byproduct, but it should not be the main reason why you do it. Because long term, especially if you don't make money, you're already, you know, you're already cutting you're already killing the project before, you know, it's in its inception.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Well, everybody already knows your social media handle for X is on the screen at Cursed Atelier. But other than that, as a final question, how can our listeners reach out and find you, or more about you and your projects?
I would say the primary platform that we post on is definitely our Discord. You can join our Discord. We have like a lot of like channels in Discord for about the updates and everything. We have our Steam community tab. We have our supporter sites, Patreon and Subscribestar, and of course, like you said, the social media. We are active on X and Blue Sky as well. If you want to follow along with the the development journey, we post 4 progress reports a month regarding the state of the art, writing, and coding, and upcoming updates. So we try to be as transparent as possible to the community.
And you post those across the board?
Sorry?
You post those across the board on all your social media handles?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 4 progress reports, it's on Blue Sky and our Patreon and Subscribestar and the Steam community tab. Those go out all the time. And for X and Blue Sky, it's more for like promotional or just like with a scene in the game and maybe like a witty comment on it. And so please feel free to follow us on the development journey on Voidbound on those platforms that we mentioned.
You heard her, guys. Candiru and Loryana, it was an absolute pleasure to have you guys with us today. I'm sure that our fans really like you guys, and some of them are already saying that they are checking your game out and finding it interesting. I hope more people do, and they if they didn't know your project before, I hope they do now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
It was an absolute pleasure. I will see you guys at a later date. I need to say goodbye to everybody at home. It was kind of a big one. It was almost 2 hours of a podcast. So I once again, I appreciate you so much for your time, and I wish you the best for your project and all your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. You as well.
All right, everybody else at home, I hope you guys appreciate it, and do check out Voidbound at Cursed Atelier on X.com. Blue Sky, I don't know if it's the same handle, but it probably is. And I'll see you guys later next week. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and I'll see you guys. Take care.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
起きてばかり寝坊しちゃった思い出したのは君のことです